Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our Instagram live session question and answer. I just want to shout out to everybody that have sent questions to us. And I welcome you to this exciting session. I'm really looking forward to us having a great time. My name is Kemi Oduwole. I'm a partner at Topmarké Attorneys. Topmarké Attorneys is an immigration and a full-fledged law firm in Canada. We practice different areas of law, not limited to immigration. We also practice family law, child protection, administrative law, real estate, and so on and so forth. So I really want to thank everybody that sent questions to me in respect of our sessions today, and I'm sure we're really going to have a nice time. Thank you so much. I've seen a lot of people who do foods, reflection, design. Please let's know where you are joining us from. Shout out to Osaz, God's daughter. Thank you very much for joining us. Criminal defense, we don't do criminal defense, but we refer people out to do that. Thank you. Let's know where you are coming from so that I can give a shout out to you. Thank you very much. As we've stated in our flyers, I would not really be able to attend to questions you send in the comments, but I'll try my best. But I would ensure that I address as many questions as I can from the ones that have been sent to me. So if you see the flyer, our first question is on the flyer, is Canadian visa 100% guaranteed? That's the question. And it generated a lot of controversy. A lot of people told me that you are not an immigration officer. How can you guarantee visa? And I just tried to explain to them that the essence of this Q&A is to bust myths, and misinformation in respect of Canadian immigration. And before I go ahead, I just want to give a disclaimer here. I'm not giving legal advice. Whatever information I give here today is just for general information purposes and does not in any way create a counsel-attorney privilege between me and my viewers or between TPM and my viewers. So it's just a corporate social responsibility, and we're just trying to inform people to have a good idea and information when it comes to immigration to Canada. So the first question is Canadian visa 100% guaranteed? So the truth is that nobody can actually guarantee you a visa. We've had clients come to our office and told us that they have agents, they've paid and they've guaranteed them. Some say they know somebody inside and all that. The truth is nobody can, except the Canadian immigration authorities themselves. They are the one that can grant you visa. All you need to do is to ensure you follow the requirements. And this is available at the Canadian government website. This information is very much available on the Canadian government website, and that is www.cic.gc.ca. That's available on that website, and I would like you to look at it. It's very important you educate yourself so that even if you're asking people for information, you know where to get whatever information you need to get. And once you ensure that you put your documents right, then it is for the officer to grant visa. One thing I want people to know is that granting visa is a discretion. So that's why you realize that you have 2-3 people that go to the embassy with almost similar documentation, and yet maybe one is given visa and the other is not given visa. So it is just how the visa officer is persuaded in such circumstances. But most times when your documents are put together properly, you have a higher chance of having the visa granted. And another thing that is important for viewers to note is that the main fact that a person has a visit visa to enter a country does not automatically grant entry to the country. Because the officer at the port of entry, that is at the airport or wherever you are coming into, will still assess and decide whether you can enter the country or not. So that is very important for travelers to note, because there are a lot of people that they've come to Canada or some other country, and at the airport they are sent back by the officer because the officer believes they've not met the requirements. So it's very important for us to know that it's not enough having the visa, but you must continue to ensure you meet the requirement that is required for granting visa even at the point of entry. So the answer to that is, that's the myth buster. Nobody can guarantee visa. So when anybody tells you that don't worry, we can guarantee you visa, you need to look a second time to be sure that they are telling you the truth. So another question I have here is Thank you very much for your programs. I live in China. Now I would like to move to Canada with my family. Please, I need your advice. What should I prepare? What do I need? Thank you very much. It's very important that this session is not actually to tell people about the various streams of immigrating to Canada. We've done quite a number of that. We have some seminars. On June 10, we have a Zoom session organized by our office. We'll post that on our page. It's on Express Entry. We've done some free webinars on economic immigration to Canada, study immigration to Canada. Watch out for them on our YouTube channel. Before the end of this month, they'll be posted on our YouTube channel. So they are very useful information for you when it comes to migrating to Canada. So the essence of our interaction today is just to answer general questions and particularly to bust misinformation with respect to Canadian immigration. So with respect to this, there are really different ways of coming to Canada. There are major two streams of visa you can get to Canada. There is a temporary residence and there is the permanent residence. So the temporary residence visa to Canada includes the visit visa. It includes work permit or study permit. So those are temporary resident visa. And the permanent residence visa is we have the family class, which is maybe when a person sponsors the grandparents or the parents, sponsors a child, sponsors a spouse, that is within the family class. And we have the economic class. So this is the business immigration, where people come to invest in Canada, buy business, set up business, and by that they get permanent residence to Canada. And the popular one is the skilled visa to Canada. The skilled visa to Canada is the one I said we are having a session on June 10, Zoom session. Please watch out for that. It promises to be a very, very informative session. So those are the means by which people can come to Canada. So it's either a permanent residence or a temporary residence. So one needs to look at what your intention is. If it's temporary, if it's permanent, you look at the requirements for applying for these visas and see if you meet the requirements. So that's that for that. And if you want more information, you can send us an email at info@tpmattorneys.com. info@tpmattorneys.com. We'll be happy to assist you with respect to that. Another question I have here is, can I complete the visa application on my own? Somebody has asked, can I complete the visa application on my own? The truth is that there is enough information on Canadian government website, which I've shared with you earlier, www.cic.gc.ca. There are lots of information with respect to Canadian immigration. And the Canadian immigration is set up in such a way that is very user-friendly. If you take your time, all the information you require is actually on the government website. All the documents you need to fill, step-by-step guidance on how you can fill this document. So when you sign into that page, www.cic.gc.ca, you have the English or French. Whichever language you speak, you click on it. And whatever application you're looking for, if it's study permit, if you don't know how to navigate it, you can just type in whatever you're looking for and it gives you what you want. The forms you need to submit, the supporting documents, how you need to put your documents together, what you don't need, everything is on the website. So I guess if you have access to internet, if you're patient and you know what you're doing, why not? I don't see the reason why you cannot complete your application yourself. Whether it's temporary residence, whether it's permanent residence, you should be able to fill in the application yourself. And one caveat though that is very important for people to note when they fill this application themselves is that filling this documentation is a lot, because there are a lot of forms you need to fill. There are a lot of information you need to put there. You need to put your history, travel history, employment history, academic history, and so on and so forth. So you have to make sure the information is consistent. If you fill a form on another form, the information is not the same, or you can let's assume somebody had applied for visa previously to Canada and he just filled a date, whether he thought, oh, maybe I started work at so January 2014, And the next time he was filling another maybe permanent residence visa now, he now put another date. If the officer is assessing that, that could be problem. And the very common one is where they ask you, have you been refused visa before? Some people would think that, oh, I've never applied to Canada, it's only in the US. And they say no. So in such an instance, it could lead to a ban. It could be 4-year ban that you will not be able to apply to Canada. So there are consequences when it comes to a person completing the forms themselves. So in such instances, a person may need a professional help, or where a person had applied for multiple visas in the past and is been refused, or a person has lived in some other country legally, or a person has breached the immigration rules of Canada or any other country. In that instance, it may be advisable to seek professional help. But aside from that, it's a person. So the simple question is, can I complete the application myself? I'll say yes, why not? You can. But you just have to make sure you err on the side of caution. You take your time, you read the instructions, you complete the forms. And I usually advise people, don't just put dates offhand. If you're filling your academic information, have your certificate by you. If you're filling your employment history, have your letter of employment with you. So every time you are completing the same form, whichever country you're applying to, your information will remain consistent. So those are the extra work that professionals will do when they review forms for a person. So it is left for you. If you have the time, you have the resources, and you'll be able to do it. Quite a number of people have filled their temporary residence, permanent residence, and they've been successful about it. So the decision is for whoever wants to make this application to know whether they have the capacity to be able to do that or not. Another question I have here says, do I need prior travel history to secure Canadian visa? Do I need prior history to secure Canadian visa? The truth is that assessing Canadian visa, the visa officers themselves have rules that the government have given them when it comes to assessing visa, and prior history is not one of the grounds. Although a lot of times we see on letters of refusal that one of the grounds for refusal is because a person does not have previous travel history. But previous travel history is not a ground for granting or refusing visit visa or travel visa. So that is just on paper. But we know that in practice, some officers look at it. And like I've said, assessment of visas is a discretion. So it is left to the discretion of the officer to decide. So the answer I would give is no. It is not necessary to have travel history, because we've had clients who have never traveled before, and we've applied for the entire family. They've had 5-year visa, 3-year visa, and they've never traveled before. And we've had people who have traveled before with previous experiences, and sometimes their visa has been refused. So like I said, this largely depends on the discretion of the officer. But however, if a person had traveled previously and had returned to the country of residence, it would tend to make the application stronger, because that is telling the immigration officer that this person has prior travel history and this person has not breached immigration history of the country the person has traveled to, and the person would come back. And the same thing applies where a person has traveled and have overstayed. And one thing I want our viewers to note, and they should be cautious of this, is that the world is a global village now. The world is a global village, so all these countries share information. So if the Canadian authorities ask you when you are filling the form, have you ever applied for visa before, and you say, oh, he's in US, they can't know. Those days are gone. They share information and they would know. So we've had people who had come to us, they had overstayed in the US in particular. They applied for Canadian visa. They were not forthright. They were banned. In fact, we had one that was even a permanent residence application, and the person completed on his own. And this person actually forgot. It's not that he intended to lie, but that has led to admissibility issue. And it's not just visiting visa, it's permanent residence. So these things are very key, that a person does the right thing. So as I was saying with travel history, if a person has a travel history that has breached immigration rules in the country the person has traveled previously, it may be a reflection to the officer that this person may not apply with Canadian immigration rules. But that does not mean that if you've been refused visa previously, you would not get visa. There are people that have been refused visas 3-4 times in Canada, and at the 5th time, they got the visa. There are people that have been refused visas from other countries, and this time they got the visa. But the key thing here is that even though the grant of visa is a discretion for the officer, but the most important thing here is how the documents are put together. Where documents are properly put together, completed accurately, with the adequate supporting documents, then there is a very high chance that the visa would be granted. One thing I want the audience to also be cautious of is that when it comes to applying for visa, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So one size does not fit all. The main fact that the husband applied for visa, he put 1, 2, 3 documents together. The wife is applying, and she put the 1, 2, 3 documents together, and she was refused because the circumstances are different. So if the husband were employed and he put his letter of employment there, and the officer is sure he would come back. But if the wife were a businesswoman and she doesn't have document to show that she works, and that is very important to convince the officer that she would come back. So you just wonder, oh, why was I refused? After all, I applied with my husband, but the circumstances are not the same. So it's very important that it is not one size fits all when it comes to application for visa. So it's very important that individual history, individual circumstances are looked and put into place, and the checklist of the supporting documents will be looked at. So those are some of the painstaking steps professionals take when they're assisting people in applying for visa. So like I said, the short answer to the question is you do not require prior travel history. However, if you have prior travel history, it would be good. And if you've breached immigration rules or privileges in another country, it could send a negative signal to the officer who is assessing the immigration form. So it could impact a person's application for visa. So it's very important to note that. I have another question here. It says, hello. Can I come to Canada with my family on student visa? I got so many advice to apply differently because, he said I got so many advice. I got so many advice to apply differently because of fear of rejection. So the first thing is, the person is asking if you could come to Canada with his family on a study permit. So the answer is yes. If a husband is applying for study permits, can he come with his wife and his children? The rule allows a family to come in on a study permit. So if the husband should come in on a study permit, the wife would be entitled to an open work permit as well, so that she can work, and the children would be entitled to go to school. But it is not one size fits all. Like I said, that is always the rule with immigration. The immigration officer would assess the applicants to see if they meet the threshold. So there are different thresholds. Can the person afford to pay the school fees and so on? Would they return to Nigeria? So it's very important that they look at the circumstances before applying. And one other question the person asked here is that, should I apply differently because of fear of rejection? I guess what the person meant was that, should they apply separately? That is, maybe he puts in his own application first for the study permit. If he's granted, he can apply for his family as well. Or he's stating that, should he do the application together? This depends on the circumstance. This really depends on the circumstance, and these are things that professional will look at the circumstance to determine whether a person can apply with a family together or not. But the thing is that if the family already have a visit visa, it could help before they apply for the study visa. But it just depends on the circumstances. If the officer is convinced, so the person can put in an initial application, and from the onset it can put there that he's coming to Canada with his wife and his children, or a person can first apply for the study visa, and subsequently, when he's settled down at school, he can now ask for his wife, for visa for his wife and for his children. So it depends. But one thing is that if a person had applied for study permits and is in Canada, if his family should have a visit visa, they can come in on visit and they can now convert their visit visa. That's an excellent way they can go about it. So if the family has a visit visa, he has a study visa, is here already, the family can come in, join him, and when they are in such a circumstances, they can regularize their process and make it temporary and get work permits. The children would be able to go to school, and that solves it. So I think that is good. I have another question here. It says, hello, my name is so. I'm applying from Italy. Adiola, keeping it real. Okay, it's here. Adiola, keeping it real. Mentioned you. And I have a Nigerian passport. I have my residence and work permit of stay. Okay, so I guess what this person is saying is that he has a legal status in Italy. So that means the person has a work permit in Italy. He has a Nigerian passport and he wants to apply to migrate to Canada permanently. Can that be done? Of course, that can be done. It does not matter the country where you reside. So far, you have a legal status in the country you're applying from, then it doesn't matter. So he resides in Italy, he has a work permit in Italy, and he wants to apply for permanent residence to Canada. Whether he wants to do the economic stream, the family stream, or the skilled workers stream, is entitled to do so. He can do so if he comes in to Canada. So it does not matter where the person is applying from. So far, the person has a status from the country is applying from. And another thing, though, that I've seen is that the Canadian, the rule is generally a person should have status. But we've seen people, especially Nigerians, who had visited US and they have friends in Canada and they didn't plan they were coming to Canada and they applied at the consulate in the US and they were given visa to come to Canada. So, but another thing that I noticed that if a person is going to apply from a third country that is not the person's country of citizenship or permanent residence, you are going to be asked the status you have in that country. So if you don't have a status in that country and you're applying to visit Canada or to stay permanently in Canada, that is a red flag for the officer processing it, because that is telling the officer that you do not respect the immigration rule from the country you're applying from. So how would the officer be assured that you are going to respect Canadian immigration rules? So for Mr. Bankole calling from Italy, so far you have a status in Italy. It doesn't matter whether you carry a Nigerian passport or not, you can apply for. There's an interesting question I just saw here. It said, can you apply for express entry and still be applying for study visa? That is awesome. Yes, you can. So the scenario the person is asking is, let's assume the person has a profile in the pool for express entry. The person wants to apply to come to Canada permanently. And there's an opportunity also for that person to come in to study. Why not? So while you are in the pool, if you're lucky to be in the pool, because the person's profile could be in the pool for a year, so you don't know when you're going to be called. And if you have the opportunity to come study in Canada and you can pay for the fee, it doesn't stop you. So one can have both applications simultaneous in the system. So if you come in to study and while you are studying, you're pooled, then you get your permanent residence and you'll be able to change your status from a foreign national to a Canadian permanent residence once that is done. So thank you for that question. That is a very good question. That's Pablo. Thank you for that question. Thank you very much. So I'll go to the next question. The next question says, how much will it cost a father and his son to move to Canada? How much will it cost a father and his son to move to Canada? That is a very broad question. So let me just rephrase and say, how much will it cost me to come to Canada? Don't forget, I've told us that there are two major streams in coming to Canada. We have the temporary stream and we have the permanent stream. So the temporary stream is the visit, the work permit, the study. How much will it cost you? if you are coming to Canada to visit, for instance, the rule is that when it comes to temporary residence, the government or the immigration policy does not give the exact amount you need, but this is governed by the rule of common sense. If you are coming to Canada on a visit, and especially from countries, you would have to calculate the expense from the Canadian equivalent. It's very important for us to know that. Those that are coming from the country where the exchange rate is almost at par would have no issue. But those that are coming from countries where the exchange rates are far pole apart, one needs to be cautious in respect of that. So if a person were coming to Canada on vacation, and the cost of hotel, assuming you told the immigration officer in your letter that you want to come and spend 2 weeks in Canada for a vacation, and the hotel is, let's assume, $90 per night for 2 weeks, and you're going to eat, you're going to do shopping, your flights, and $90 per night for 10 nights already. That's already $900. For 2 weeks, you're going to eat, let's assume $300, $400. Your flight expense, let's say $1,500. So we're looking at almost $3,000. And what you have in your account is exactly $3,000. He raises an eyebrow for the officer. The officer would believe that you would not come back because you don't have enough money to take care of yourself, or where the money is not enough. So when it comes to funds, it's a rule of common sense. You must show you have enough money. Or when it comes to study permit as well, it's not enough to show that you can pay for the school fees, but you need to be able to take care of other expenses. There was a free webinar we did on study permit, and it's really, really detailed in respect of the cost, what you need to do for study permits. Watch out for it on our YouTube channel. It will be posted before the end of the month, and once it is posted, it will be put on our Instagram, so watch out for that. So when it comes to that, I can't really say. But the good thing is that when it comes to work permits, for work permits, your finance is not a huge factor because you're coming to work. So once you're sure you have a letter from an employer, then the Canadian immigration officer is more satisfied because you will earn an income when you come into Canada. But the rule is different when it comes to permanent residence. So for permanent residence, there's usually funds that a person is expected to have. So if I had explained earlier that there are three streams when it comes to permanent resident. For instance, when it comes to sponsorship, if a man is going to sponsor his wife, or a woman is going to sponsor her husband, there is a minimum income threshold that is required, or the person needs to work. If a person is going to sponsor the parents or the grandparents, there is a minimum household income that the person would have. So if you're a family of 4, husband, wife, and 2 children, your income expectation is different from where it is just a man that is going to sponsor the mom, or where it's a family of 4, they want to sponsor both grandparents at the same time. The government have a minimum income threshold for that family. So let's assume the popular skilled worker application for express entry. If a person is going to apply for express entry, for instance, if it's just one person, the government says that you must show proof that you have 12,960. That's about 13,000 Canadian dollars in your account. If it's a family of 4, you must have like 24,000 in your account. So when it comes to the cost of coming to Canada, it is relative depending on the circumstance. And don't forget that you would also have to factor in the visa fee, the biometrics, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to that, for the temporary residence, application fee is usually a rule of common sense. You have to make sure you have enough money to cover your expenses, and you have to also make sure that you have a little left in your account. One thing we've learned is that when it comes to this proof of funds, a lot of times, if you are going to stay with a family, for instance, that would reduce your cost. So if you have letter from friends, family that you are going to stay with throughout the duration, that means you don't need to cater for accommodation. You don't need to cater for food if it's stated in their letter that they're going to take care of that. So that is very good. Somebody stated here, good evening, madam. Like I said, I live in China. I'm from Nigeria. I have work permit. I deal with solar energy. I need work visa. Look out. We're also going to have a free webinar on work permits in respect of that. So please look out for that. Like I noted, this session is just general question and answer and to bust myths, misinformation that is going on in respect of Canadian immigration. That's what we're trying to do. Watch out for our webinar. Once we have that, we'll let you know. And if you have any further questions in respect of work permits and particular immigration application, just send it to email info@tpmartinez.com. We'll be able to answer to that. So I hope I've been able to satisfy the person that asked that question on how much it would cost to move to Canada. We've had a lot of questions individually from people that have asked about migrating to Canada and what will it cost, how would they go about it. Please check our YouTube channel, send us email, we'll help you. There's a question here from Gabriel Afolabi 756. I like that question. Does US and Canada share visa information of applicants? I asked because I was denied visa in US embassy a few years ago with married status. So most times they share they share information. But you know what? I would just rather you do the thumb rule. Just assume they share the information because it does you no wrong if you are forthright with visa application. And that is one thing we've learned. We've really counseled our clients to comfort if whatever had been the history of their past. We note that immigration generally, they have rules in place to protect the integrity of their system, to ensure that the safety of their citizens and residents are protected. That's why most of these rules are there. And the system is also not to punish people's mistakes. We're human beings and we know we make mistakes. So if people had overstayed in the past, they've had criminality in the past, there are ways you can overcome this. But what makes the immigration process more complicated is where an applicant is hiding this information and the immigration officer finds out themselves, it makes it worse. So if you've been denied visa application in the past, you've had criminality in the past, if you come clean on your application, it helps. When you have professionals, in such complicated circumstances, I really encourage people to use professionals. Professionals will help you put it across. I've been told we've spent almost 30 minutes now. So if we can't answer most of these questions, we'll try to see if we can still have another question and answer session to be able to answer more questions. We had quite a number of questions and I'm sure we can't deal with them. I just want to make sure that the few questions I answer, I deal with them in detail so that we don't need to go back to those questions again. So thank you for that question. You assume they share, but I'm sure US and Canada share. So the thumb rule is that whatever might be your immigration history, come clean. The immigration system is not punitive. And believe you me, they forgive. We've seen people with very complicated history, criminality involved, lies, overstayed in different countries. And we were able to put the process, their information together, the application together with relevant jurisprudence, and they were granted the application. So that's one thing I want us to know. The application system is not punitive. They forgive so far as you are forthright in the process of the application. So it's very important for us to note that. So, okay, let me go on to the next question. I have a visitor's visa and would like to stay permanently in Canada. Although I have children here, but they are yet to have their PR. How do I go about it? That's a very good question. Thank you, Ms. Abolade, for sending in that question. So this is the question for somebody who is already here in Canada. And she wants to know if it's possible for her to regularize her status. One thing that I want us to note is that visitor's visa, a temporary resident visa, is not a passport to come and live permanently in Canada. That is one thing a lot of people have come to us, that they've been to some or study permits. There are actually some group of students that came to our office, I think sometime in 2018. It was actually a group of students that some people collected a huge amount of money from their parents, told them that they organized study permit for them, that once they come into Canada, the government will pay their school fees, the government will take care of their accommodation, they would get job, they will be able to go to school, pay their school. All their parents need to do is just for them to land in Canada, and they are the problem of Canadian government. That is a lie. It is only Canadian, even Canadian residents and citizens pay higher institution fees. It is only any level of education below post-secondary education that the government takes care of. Canadian residents, Canadian citizens pay college, university fee themselves. For international students, depending on the school, depending on the course, depending on the province, could pay as much as 3 times the fee of permanent residents and citizens. So that is a lie. It's a red flag when you hear that. So the children were just brought here and they were dumped in a shelter, you know, and their parents thought, oh, our children are coming to Canada and this is Messiah for our life, you know, and it's so unfortunate that quite a number of them we spoke with, their parents sold everything they had to send these children to Canada. They sold everything they had, and it's so unfortunate that the agent just brought them and dumped them in the shelter and did not look back. So please, parents, it's very important we verify this information. So that's the essence. We are having Q&A sessions like this, and that is why I'm also giving you the website for Canadian government, www.cic.gc.ca. Check for yourself. Don't let anybody come and rip you off, you know. So we really tried our best to settle some of the people we could settle. So it's very important for us to note that that is not true. So very important. Yes, we have an office in Nigeria. We'll post the information on our, just watch out on, and you could send us a DM. You could send us a DM, we'll send you the office. Shitu Yusuf, thank you. Send us and we will send you Nigerian office address. So please do that. So I've pinned the website for Canadian government, www.cic.gc.ca. Please check out this information yourself. The essence of why TPM is doing this is not because we want to help people come to Canada. I saw in one of the comments posted by Adiola, somebody said, oh, these people are helping people to leave the country. You see, the truth is that some people would stay in the country to make it better. Maybe some people would leave and come back, but whatever people want to do, let them have the right information. That's why we're doing this. It's just for people to have the right information so that they are not, you know, their money is not just stolen away from them, because we've had information of people spending a lot of millions, and at the end of the day, people are just lying to them concerning the process for Canadian information. So information is knowledge, information is power. That's why we're doing this session. It is to inform people, give them tidbits. When you go to somebody and the person said is a professional, he wants to help you. If you have a minimum information, you've done your own research, you would be able to ask questions. I'm always glad when I have clients who come to me and they ask questions. I'm really excited because this shows this person is engaged, he knows what he's doing. And he also keeps the professionals on their toe. They can't just sell any bogus information to anybody. So we'll let you know. Somebody asked a question, how long will it take and what are the processes required for a health professional, but specifically a pharmacist, to obtain a visa to travel to Canada with the aid of working in Canada? For that person, please join our seminar. Join our seminar on June 10. Is on skilled worker. Join our seminar on June 10. Is on our skilled worker. So please take note of that. June 10 is on skilled worker, so that will work for you. Is bank accounts a major value to Canadian visa? Do embassies actually call the bank to ask specifically how much is in your bank account? That is a very good question. Okay, it's from our TPM. We got it from the media. We've seen a lot of times that these informations are actually confirmed. So, you know, like I said, it is discretion. An officer that is assessing a file may be persuaded looking at a file and it just grants the visa. An officer looking at a file may not be persuaded and it just refuses the visa. And an officer that feels, well, I think this looks good, let me verify. So they do it randomly. So the answer is yes, they do verify. Sometimes they verify employment, they verify bank, especially when you're applying for express entry, whether visa, express entry. Is very like the rule, the term rule we tell people is be candid. You don't need to lie. You don't need to exaggerate your visa application. Just don't. The problem we've had with people is that people will say, oh, if you put A and B together, that is how they're granting visa. And that also causes concerns for immigration officer, because if I'm an immigration officer and I see that from a particular country, they all have the same profile, I question the integrity of such an application. So please don't move with the crowd. It doesn't matter what the crowd are saying. Oh, this is what the grant visa, if you put 2, 3 together. No. Come as you are. State your application. What are your reasons for visiting? Put your supporting documents. Be real, be candid. That's the most important thing. Be candid. Because we've had people, I remember we had somebody who had applied for Canadian visa a very long time ago and had boasted the application where the person had not worked and all that. And the person now wants to apply for Canadian permanent residence. And fortunately for the person came to our office, and we now told the person that we would not put in the application except we are sure of his Canadian history. Because we asked, have you ever applied for Canadian visa before? He said, I think so, I'm not sure. We now said, if you are not sure, there is a way we can find out that information through access to information. So we advised him that we will not get involved until we are sure we know. Because if we go to apply and we say he has not applied before and he has applied, he could be banned from applying to Canada for 4 years. So that is a serious consequence. So fortunately, he allowed us to go ahead, and we did the access to information, and we're able to get his information history. And from that, oh my God, he's applied several times and he was denied because in some prior visa, he had said he had not applied before. So you can imagine if we had put that application in and also said he had not applied before. So when we received all the documents, all the employment history he gave us is totally different from what he had completed before. In fact, when he read it himself, he could not believe it, that, oh my God, where did this come from? That was not his employment history. He said when he was applying, then people told him, he said he was married, he had 2 children. He was not married even till when he came to us, he had no child. So what do you expect him to tell Canadian government now, that his wife is dead, or the children are dead, or they are nowhere to be found? So these are things that he himself had forgotten, because that was what he was coached to put in. And anyway, we're still trying to resolve that, and we're on it. So that's one thing. The term rule is be candid in your application. Be candid before trying. Truth will always be truth, whenever and wherever. Truth will always be truth. So it's very important for us. Somebody said, I have citizenship in another country. Can I still settle down permanently in Canada? Of course you can. That's a very good question. Canada does not mind multiple nationality. So you can be a citizen of Canada. And you can also be, so we have clients that are citizens of Nigeria, citizens of Britain, and they have gotten their Canadian citizenship. We have clients that so it doesn't matter. So Canadian does not matter. I see this Jumi Olukosi. What happens if you have lived and worked in the US without papers and return to Nigeria? Can you disclose when applying for Canadian visa? That is it. If your history asks for where you have worked, like I said, the rule is to be candid, to be candid, to be candid. Because so the rule is now, it depends on what you're applying for. If you're applying for Canadian express entry and you want to use the experience you get in the US, how will you put that in? And another thing is that sometimes they usually on the form, it says the last 10 years. If you have lived in the UK, in US without status, more than 10 years ago, that information would not be required, because the way you fill that form, there should be no gap in your information. So if you had lived in the US for 5 years, you are back to Nigeria 2 years. So what happened in those 5 years? So that is where that comes in. So it depends on the form you are filling. It depends on the application. But the term rule is be candid, because there are some forms you fill that would not even require that information if the time have passed. So it's just the term rule is be candid, but you just need to know. Somebody said, what about the issue of travel experience? We've dealt with that before. We are going to put this on our YouTube channel for people that are just joining us. Which is easier, getting a visa to be a healthcare worker or getting a study permit and studying for your master's? That is a very good question. You get a visa, do you get a work permit, you get a visa, you get a permanent resident? The circumstances of people are very different. So, oh my God, I have so many questions here. I'm trying to answer questions I have, trying to look for interesting questions I see. So, in respect of that, it depends on your circumstance. So you are asking, how should I come with a study visa, with a visit visa? Should I come as a professional? If you are coming in with a study visa, don't forget that there's a huge cost involved in studying. So if you are coming for, even if it's a master's program, you are paying times 2, times 3 of what residents pay. And you pay for your accommodation, you pay for your feeding. After that, you don't automatically become a Canadian permanent resident. You need to have a minimum of 1 year work experience for you to get some Canadian permanent residence. So, and work is not so easy to get. That's another myth. People tell you, once you come to Canada with visit visa, we'll get work for you. I have a question here. We'll come to that. So in respect of this, I advise people to look at the pros and cons. If you come to me and you're a health professional, you're an accountant, from your profile, you qualify for the express entry. The wait time could be a year or a year and a half. I would rather ask you to go through the channel of the express entry, because with that, you are coming in as a permanent resident. If you come in as a student, you are paying huge school fees. You still have to go through the hustle of working for a minimum of 1 year in Canada before you can apply for your permanent residence, although you come into Canada immediately. But if you stay back in Nigeria for another, or whatever country you're coming from, maybe you are in Italy, like somebody has said, you're in China, you stay back there, you're still working, you have applied for the express entry, and it takes you 1.5 years, 1 year to come to Canada. The circumstances are different. So you're coming in as a permanent resident. You can get government funding to go to school. You pay the school fees for residents. So it depends on, do you want to come now? Or do you want to come when it's suitable for you? Do you have the money to spend, or you don't have the money to spend? So those are factors you need to look into to decide whether you want to come in straight as a professional, or whether you want to come in through the route of work permit, or come in as express entry, or come in as a student. Another thing I want to discuss here is the question of, is it possible if I come to Canada with a visitor's visa, I'll be able to find job? There is a job for me. Some people have said, oh, that's another thing we need to find out. Believe you me, job is not as easy as people paint it. Even for those that are citizens and permanent residents in Canada, it's a bit of a challenge. So don't let anybody lie and say, once you have a visit visa, you come to Canada, you get a job, you just translate it. No, it is not that easy. Ask any foreign national who has finished studying in Canada. They will tell you, although they've gone to school in Canada, they need to work to have the work experience to be able to get their permanent residence. It is not easy securing employment to fit their NOC, because it's not just working, flipping burger at McDonald's. It has to be a job that is equivalent to what they study. So that is not easy to come by. So please don't let anybody tell you such lies that you just come in automatically, you get work permit. No. And there are very limited circumstances that a person can come into Canada with a visitor's visa and regularize the status to become permanent. There are few windows. It's not impossible, but please find out information. It is not in all circumstances, and immigration most times don't encourage it. You have to get your information right before you come in as a visitor's visa and you think you're not going back, so that you don't overstay and their problem. We've had a lot of professionals who have come to Canada. They're excellent candidates for express entry. Some business people that are excellent candidates for business immigration, and they just messed it up because they were misinformed. They came in with visitors visa and they overstayed, or they made some applications that stayed in their way, and because of that, they couldn't exhaust all other opportunities that would have been available to them. So please take note of that, and be careful when it comes to that. So please note that is very important when it comes to checking for the Canadian visa. Okay, I saw a question. I'm a lawyer in Nigeria. Is it better to use express entry for PR? Or basically, I'm asking, is it better to use any other means other than an express entry? If you're a lawyer in Nigeria, lawyer means you're a skilled worker. So like I said, if you're coming to Canada permanently, there are 3 different streams. So it's the stream you fit into. If you have a family that can sponsor you. So another thing you need to note, a brother cannot sponsor a sister, except there is a rule we have in Canada, the lonely Canadian. Except that sister is the only family member you have alive. Wow, I'm told I have 10 minutes more. So I assure you, maybe we're going to have another question, and because I have lots of questions we've not been able to answer, we'll see if we can. I really want to thank everybody, but let me quickly answer the question from the lawyer. So, like I said, there are three means by which you could migrate to Canada permanently. Sponsorship. So if you have somebody who can sponsor you, so that means your spouse as an adult. So usually it's just the spouse that can sponsor you, or economic immigration if you have the money to set up a business. But if you're looking at the skilled workers stream, so you look at the express entry. Under the express entry, there are other programs. There's the provincial nominee that you can look at. So there are lots of programs you can look into this. So like I said, this is not the avenue. Please, for the person that asked that question, join our seminar June 10 on Zoom. The information will be posted on the handle for TPM. Please look out for it. There's a lot of information that would guide you in making that decision. And we also have one that's been done before on study permit. Check our YouTube channel for that, and you will be able to know. What about international? Okay. There was somebody that asked a question about international admission. Okay. So that's very important for us. I think I have 5 minutes more. I'm told I have 5 minutes more. So we have tried to answer as many questions as I have. I would see if we can do another session. We'll post that out. Is house compulsory to migrate to Canada? If you are coming to Canada permanently, yes, it is, depending on the system. So if you're doing a family migration permanently, you don't need house. But if you're doing economic, some business immigration, yes. The points you need depends on the system. So for a lot of provincial nominee, the points required is low. For the express entry itself, which is the federal program itself, you need a very high point. So please join our seminar on June 10. It would give you a lot of information. And thank you very much for everybody that have joined this seminar. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a very exciting time for me, and I hope I've been able to answer your questions. Please keep the questions coming, media at tpmattorneys.com for your questions, and I'm sure we'll try to see if we can organize another question, media at tpmattorney.com. Please keep your questions coming, and we'll see if we can organize another session to be able to answer these questions. So the essence of this is that information is key. Information is knowledge when it comes to migrating to Canada. Don't forget, I've told you about the government website, www.cic.gc.ca. Make sure you confirm the information. If you read anything, if it doesn't ring the sound, somebody would say, oh, it doesn't have a sound of truth. It doesn't ring right. Yes. Go to the website, find out, ask questions before you commit your money. And please don't be in a hurry. That's one problem we've had with people. You can't have it. I know this is a microwave generation. You want it done now, ASAP. But you know what? You need to plan. You need to consider the pros and the cons. You need to get your information right. Because if you're too much in a hurry, this is where you fall into the hands of fraudsters and you spend so much money. A lot of people have sent me messages. Oh, are you genuine? Are you real? I've spent so much money. I've spent so much money on that. I said, look, just go through all this information session. Oh, how much will you pay? How much can I pay for you to? I said, look, we've done all this seminars, webinars. They are free. We're going to post them on our YouTube channel. Listen to them. It would assist you to make an informed opinion. We're not saying if you do that, you need to engage TPM. No, just listen to it. If you could do it yourself, go ahead and do it. If you need a professional, go ahead and pick a professional of your choice. But we want to make sure you are making informed decision before you do this. So I would need to go now. This session will be posted on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us. And all the past sessions and video would be on our YouTube channel. Our website, once you type in Topmarké Attorneys on your Google or whatever browser you're using, our name comes up. It's Topmarké Attorneys. You will find our name coming up. Thank you very much, Shifan Mustafa, everybody that have joined this session, everybody that have sent in their questions. I appreciate that. So thank you, and I hope to see you next time. See you June 10. Don't forget June 10. See you June 10. Thank you very much. and it's bye for me from whatever part of the world you're coming from. Whether it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. Thank you. Okay, have a nice day. Bye.